You are in the best session to be in this morning. Accelerate your cloud migration with AWS. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers, Jules Trono from the Partner Advanced Activation and Migration team, and her co-presenter, Emily Cummins, Director of Cloud Security at Innovate. Welcome.
Thanks. Hi, good morning. I'm Jules Trono. I'm on the Partner Activation team for AWS. And what that means is that I help our customers and our partners navigate the programs that AWS has in order to help them migrate into the cloud. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as we go along. Today I'm going to tell you why people are rushing to race into the cloud and take all of their technology and put it up into wherever that cloud place is. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about how some of our partners have worked with our customers to help them accelerate that movement into the cloud. And I'm going to bring up Emily Cummins from Anishn, who's the Director of Cloud at Anishn. She's going to tell you a little bit about how Anishn was able to not only help a client migrate into the cloud while getting a security compliance, but how they shaved months off of the time it took to get there. And then finally, I'll recap with some of the things that our customers learned through this process that they were gracious enough to let me share with you so that you could learn from what they learned. So let's talk about racing into the cloud. And of course, the best way to start any AWS presentation is with a quote from Jeff Bezos. So when I think about all of the changes that we've had recently and people rushing into the cloud, I think about this quote from Jeff. When the world changes around you and when it changes against you, what used to be a tailwind now becomes a headwind, and you have to lean into that and figure out what to do because complaining isn't a strategy. So now we know there's no whining in migration. So this is really important because every change that we've had recently has been unexpected. We've had so many technological leaps, and each one is happening faster than the one before. Think about phones on every desk, computers on every desk, computers in every home. Think about greeting cards that had more processing power than it took to get to the moon, well, at least the first time. Think about mobile phones and mobile technology and the internet. All of these things, everything that's happened has happened faster than the one before. And with each change, the thing that's happened that made us more productive, that made things easier to do, became the obstacle for the next thing. How many people in this room had somebody in their family who refused to give up their flip phone? I can't tell you how long it took me to get my parents off the flip phone. They couldn't do the things that smartphones did. They couldn't accept text messages with pictures attached. They couldn't run apps. They couldn't do the things that we wanted them to be able to do. And of course, these are always the people that say, hey, when you're going on vacation, take a bunch of pictures. And then you would have to print them out and show them to them. I can't even imagine doing that today. So those are the things that we're trying to address, but think about it in terms of business. How can a firefighter who's trying to look at real-time satellite image streams in order to keep a 78,000 acre fire under control and keep it from spreading, how can they do that on a flip phone? They can't. They need the new technology to make that happen. By the way, 78,000 acres is just over 10% of Yosemite. So you definitely don't want to be the guy that lets it get any bigger than that. Definitely don't want to be that guy. So now we're racing into the cloud and we're looking at all of the different missions and things that we need to handle today. We've had more than our fair share of change. Everybody who's moved into the cloud has done it for all the right IT reasons. All these early adopters. It's automatically scalable. It absolutely handles anything we need to handle at the time that we need it, and then it ratchets itself back down when we don't need that anymore. That's great. Those are all the right reasons. But now we're moving into that early mainstream stage where we're trying to figure out what business reason, what mission is going to make this important for us. So as we reach this tipping point, and we're dealing with all the super accelerators that we've had to look at here. We want to make sure that we're not treating anything as an obstacle if it doesn't have to be. We had a pandemic. We couldn't complain about supply chains. We couldn't complain about delivery. People need groceries. People need to know that their welfare check or their paycheck or their retirement check is going to show up. They need to know if they call 911 that a fire truck is going to show up. We couldn't just let it be an obstacle. We had to do something about it. And that is driving this race into the cloud. So with the remote healthcare and the education that we got from the people who were not ready to provide it, and with the bad actors who kept trying to steal our personal information, we still did this amazing thing. So what are the real obstacles? What are the things that are keeping us from getting into the cloud? There are three things that are important when you migrate into the cloud. You need to know that it takes knowledge. You have to have somebody who knows what they're doing. It can't just be anybody saying, well, I know how to do this thing in the business and I can do it on site on my server and it'll be just easy to throw up there into the cloud. It doesn't work that way. That's what we've learned. It's a painful lesson. It also takes time. It takes time to get to the cloud. And you have to plan for that time. We didn't have that opportunity recently. We had to just jump in there no matter what. And it takes money. We know that if we migrate some stuff into the cloud, that there are cost savings. We know that using new technology tends to drive that way. That's great, but nobody plans for the money it takes to get from here to there. So what do we do when we have a plan for that? What is it that we need, and how can somebody come to us and help us with that? So during a migration, it's important to make sure that these things do not become analysis paralysis. We definitely don't want these things to stop us because we know we've done them before. We just have to figure out how do we do that now as we're moving into the cloud. So let's talk about the knowledge. How many different things does it take to migrate into the cloud? A lot. It takes a lot. So as we're thinking about all of those things that it takes to migrate into the cloud, think about this. It takes a highly focused person 10 years to earn a black belt in karate, and even longer if they want to be a master. It takes somebody who wants to be a doctor 8 years of education and residency, and sometimes more than that. And how many of us are comfortable with having somebody who just got out of residency give us medical advice or operate on us? Not a lot. Not very comfortable with that. So why would technology be any different? When we're thinking about moving all of this stuff into the cloud, we want experts helping us. Why? Because there's personal information involved. I don't want somebody getting all my personal information, although they'd probably be disappointed. I'm not that interesting. But people have a certification showing that they've done the preliminary work and showing that they have the experience so that they're not just learning on us. That's what we're looking for. The same thing we're looking for in every other aspect of our life. So luckily, there are a bunch of companies that have spent the time and energy to learn these things, to become the experts, to be able to supplement your staff, to have the knowledge to get you there faster than you can do it on your own. And yes, of course, I'm speaking about the AWS Partner Organization. It's a great organization. AWS requires our partners to do amazing things to prove they're capable of doing these things. Before they can get a competency, they have to have an extraordinary number of people that are certified. They have to have a business plan. They have to have a marketing plan. They have to show us and actually demonstrate to us that they can cover the wide breadth of things that go into getting the stamp of approval from AWS. There's almost 300 AWS migration competency partners globally. That's not a lot in terms of how many partners we have, but it's significant in that these are the people that have the experience and are able to guide you through what you want to accomplish when you're migrating technologies into the cloud. They can do it better, faster, and smarter. Now, here's another lucky coincidence of me standing up here. AWS has actually spent quite a bit of time speaking to our partners and speaking to our customers about what are the obstacles to get you into the cloud. And one of the biggest obstacles is that upfront cost. That's a concern that everybody has. So AWS listened to that. They put together several programs that address specifically that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as I'm talking about how these customers migrated things into the cloud. So again, no whining in migration. We know how to lean into the headwind. We know how to grab the right partners to do this. So let's talk about how it gets done. And we're going to start by talking about how state and local governments are migrating their mainframes into the cloud in order to support their family services departments. And the reason I'm choosing this is AWS has an extraordinary number of Department of Human Services that are doing this now and have been doing this for the last year and a half. Each state has a Department of Human Services. They support welfare, food stamp services, child support and foster systems. They provide supplemental nutrition assistance programs, which some people might know as SNAP, housing assistance, and Medicaid. I think we've all heard of these things. So there's anywhere from 25,000 to 4 million people in any given state getting these services. That's an average of 739,000 per state. That's a significant number. If you think about it in terms of percentages, it's anywhere from 4% to 21% of our citizens, which again averages out to about 11% across all of our states. Think about that number. Think about these numbers. That's an amazing number of people who cannot afford for a delay, who cannot afford for a check not to show up, who cannot afford for their services not to be available. When a natural disaster hits, Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Ida, when the earthquake hit Northridge, or when it hit San Francisco, when COVID happened, these people, they can't afford not to get these services. Think about what goes along with that. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of processing. It's a huge amount. So they were storing these things on mainframes. That's fine, but once the natural disaster hits, you can't just squeeze in more computing power. That doesn't happen. You can't just say, oh yeah, I'll just throw something in here and it'll take care of everything. It doesn't work that way. It's not scalable that way. And that's the reason that drove all of these departments to say, hey, we can't do it this way anymore. We need some help. And that's what's driving them into the cloud. So, has anybody here submitted for a tax refund? Anybody got a tax refund? Yeah. I just got a notice last month that my check actually came in the mail. When I go to the IRS website, it's still showing that it's in process. It's crazy, right? That's nuts. We can't get information timely. We can't get what we need. We have to be able to do it better. That's what's driving this. So, if we look at what does it take? Any application living on a mainframe has 2 to 3 million lines of code. I can't even imagine trying to take 2 to 3 million lines of code and shove it into something else in an instant in order to make sure that my services are still working. It takes 20 to 30 million lines of code in a full mainframe, all of the things that they're running on a mainframe. And that's 16 to 24 terabytes of data. Think about how overwhelming that would be for some problem to hit your business. And now you have to move it into the cloud. You have to move it as fast as you can. You have to make sure that you're servicing your customers, your citizens, your clients, your patients. That's the struggle that our customers went through this past year and a half. And why did they do it? They They had to put together remote access for people to get to the information to service it, all of us, to service us. They needed to make sure that they could get help from other states and the federal government. When Hurricane Katrina hit, obviously the entire state of Louisiana was wiped out. What do you do when your mainframe's underwater? Right? How do you take care of that? So, what the requirement was, they needed the skills and capabilities of partners, the things that equate to competency. They needed the industry knowledge and the technology knowledge and the ability to move to the cloud so fast. So in the past, it was cost that was driving this shift to the cloud. And now it's natural disasters, it's pandemics, it's, hey, I don't have the skill set anymore to run this on my premise. I need to run it in the cloud because those are the only people I can hire right now. That's all I know. So that's what's driving us right now. Our customers were able to automatically expand for spike usage once they got into the cloud. They were able to lower their processing needs following the emergency, and they were able to lean on AWS for those funding programs that said, hey, we weren't expecting all of these things to happen to us. We didn't know this was going to happen. We need some help getting there. And AWS said, you know what, we're going to do that. We're going to pay some money up front. We're going to pay for assessments to figure out what you need. We're going to contribute to the setup of what you need to do when you're moving something into the cloud. And we're going to help pay for the labor from your partner to move you into the cloud. And all of these customers had access to these programs to say, hey, we're getting funding from the federal government, it's not quite enough. We're getting funding from our state, it's not quite enough. We need some help to get there, and AWS said, you know what, we're going to do that. We're going to put together this program that helps with that and addresses that upfront cost obstacle. That's what AWS brought to the table. So what happened in the end? What did we get? We got an increase in the processing transactions. These states do anywhere from, I'm sorry, my screen isn't working up here, so I'm just checking here. They use anywhere from 500,000 to 2 million, or from 500,000 to 14 million processing transactions a day, depending on the size of the state. In moving to the cloud, they were able to increase the transactions they could process. They were able to reduce the processing time from weeks to hours, and everything became easier to develop. They were able to open up new services in how they were able to connect with the state so that the citizens could say, hey, I need to make an appointment to get this, or I need an answer on something. There's another way now to submit the information because nobody's working in the office. Everybody's working from home. It became easier to develop, faster performance, and of course, that resulted in faster check delivery. There was a huge delay for a while. How were we able to resolve that? We moved it into the cloud, we got more transactions processed, now they can receive their checks. More health services became available, and more families were supported. So that was the end result for our state and local governments moving their stuff into the cloud off of their mainframes. Let's talk about how a university cut its storage costs in half. Everybody likes to be able to save money. I certainly like to be able to save money. And our customers are no different from that. So, Northwestern University had an interesting problem. And the problem was people are smart, really smart. They're trying to invent new things. They're trying to do things new ways. They're trying to do medical research. They have 21,600 students in different research centers trying to come up with the next great thing the next great medical thing, the next great thing for education, the next great thing for research, the next great thing in a lot of different fields. And that resulted in billions of files, petabytes of data. All of a sudden, you get all these smart people together coming up with these great things, and they can't figure out where to go find more data. They can't figure out how to collaborate. That group over there is doing something, that group over there is doing something. How do I take advantage of what everybody's got, what everybody's doing? Unknown sources, they have no idea who owns the data, or if they need to keep it, or if they can get rid of it, or the last time it was even accessed. That's the challenge that they have. If you think about how many pictures you have on your phone, and when you go back and look at some of them and you think, I don't even remember where I was or who those people are. Think about it in terms of 21,600 students. It's kind of crazy. So, with that increasing capacity demand, Northwestern worked with our partner Comprise and said, hey, help us figure out what to do with this. Help us figure out how we can make data work together. What Comprise was able to do is say, hey, look, we've got these open standards in the way that we work with data. So let me tell you why that's important. You can store things at your own data center. You can store things in the cloud. You can let different groups determine what they need and how protected the data needs to be and where it needs to live, and that's okay. Once you do this, and you give people access to this, it's going to automatically take the stuff that isn't going to get touched, that needs to be stored, that needs to be accessible, but doesn't need to be accessible right now in this moment, and we're going to put it into much less expensive storage in the cloud. And we're going to take the data that you need to access all of the time, what we call hot data, and we're going to take that and we're going to put it into something else in the cloud so that you've got a very fast response time and you can get what you need when you want it. So Comprise did that, and the reason it works is Comprise uses an open standard that says, hey, we don't care where it lives, put it where it needs to be. We'll move it around for you. We'll make it all work. With that, Northwestern was actually able to reduce their storage costs by 2/3. That's a lot. That's a lot when you're looking at your budget. That 2/3 now becomes something that allows for the expansion and capacity that you need, because you've got all these smart people that are trying to invent the new next thing, trying to store all these crazy files that are much larger than they used to be. Files that include high-resolution satellite images and high-resolution images from MRIs and videos, things that require so much more data than anybody was ever prepared to store. And with Comprise's help and using AWS, we're able to optimize the data storage, reduce the costs, and move everything into the kind of storage that makes the most sense. What's the end result? They're able to reduce their costs from 1.1 million to 680,000 per year. That's some great scholarships. That's a great way to free up your budget. They were able to conduct data capacity planning that they had never been able to do before. And they were able to set flexible policies while they did that. They were able to put together custom archiving plans. They were able to address hot and cold data. Hot data that I need right now, need access to whenever I want with very fast response. Cold data that I need occasionally. And they were able to do this with zero data access disruption to their researchers. How many of you would like to be able to do an IT project and have a zero impact on the users? Right? We all would. That's the best. It was an amazing thing that was able to be accomplished, and it's because Comprise had the industry knowledge. Comprise had the migration knowledge. And Comprise had the backing of AWS that was able to take our data-led migration program and make funding available to help the customer get there immediately when they needed to get there. So now, I'm going to bring up Emily Cummins, and we're going to talk to you about a customer that needed a FedRAMP ATO. We're going to explain what that means. Thank you, Emily. Are you live?
Thumbs up if everyone can hear me.
Yep, there we go. All right, everybody.
Hello,
So,
everyone.
so Emily is the cloud director for Anishan. She's a senior member of their leadership team. She's responsible for their products. She's responsible for their solution architecture. So Emily, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Jules.
Recently, you had a customer that had some special needs in terms of migrating. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. So I am from a company, a nation, startup out from the West Coast. They call us Little, coming up on 100 employees, Little compared to AWS. So we have two product offerings, one for the enterprise, one for the federal space. I'm of course focused on federal, this venue. And a lot of the customers we see, and the one in particular that Jules is referencing, is the Army. We have customers who want to service the federal government. They want to service commercial agencies as well as military. So we have one customer in particular who wanted to service the Army. The Army was looking for a solution for identity management. A lot of these agencies, in my experience, I've been in this space for about 10 years now, the federal space, they want to be modern. Just as Jules was laying out, there's all these different reasons to migrate to the cloud, and if we can help them do that, we absolutely will.
I know that this customer needed to get an ATO. Can you explain what that means?
Yes. So being in the federal space, in the technology space, a lot of acronyms everywhere, so we do take Q&A at the end if I say a lot of acronyms that might get a little lost in translation. So ATO is authority to operate. So as these agencies want to use commercial cloud, so if you think about AWS, if you think about Box.gov, you think about our customers, Smartsheet's an example, SentinelOne, these commercial entities want to service their clouds to the US government, but to do that, there's a high level of compliance they have to meet. One of them just so happens to be FedRAMP, which is where my background comes from. There is for the Army as well, DoD SRG, acronym. They have to go through this compliance rigor, and once they go through that audit, they then receive their ATO, their authority to operate, and these commercial clouds can then sell their services to the government, or in this case, to the Army.
Thank you. Can you tell us what the Army wanted to do with the software that they were asking your customer to put into the cloud?
So the identity solution, so Army, if I have any Army folks here, any military folks here, the Army, there's a lot of different branches within there, different entities, and there's, of course, I think as everyone here in technology has seen, federated identity is phenomenal. The more you can get away from local repositories, the more you can centralize all that. They go everything off of CAC, so being able to have their one PKI system, work with all these federated identity solutions, so putting all that into one space, that's what our customer was offering, and that's who we helped build this full environment in the cloud in AWS that Army could then leverage.
So they could use the same login for their Outlook as they could for their supply system,
Yes.
or for any other system that they were accessing.
Yes. So for anyone who has MFA, imagine having like 20 different iPhones, all with a different MFA, carrying all those around, streamline all of that to one. It's the general use case that folks see across the board, same thing here.
And the Army, they're putting it on a card, and they're basically sticking it in a card slot wherever they sit down.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So is this a kind of thing that you see often? Clients that need some type of authority to operate at a different level when they're moving things into the cloud?
Absolutely. Commercial agencies, I mentioned at the top, commercial agencies, they're in the FedRAMP program. A lot of those, like HHS, GSA themselves, a lot of these agencies want to leverage the cloud, so we see a lot of that. Military, they do have their own standard that builds on top of FedRAMP, which is what the commercial agencies use. But that's, I just like to think of that as a next level up of compliance and security that goes with that. But yeah, all these different agencies, they want to leverage the cloud. They need some help to do that, which is where we come into play, and of course AWS does as well.
So how long does it normally take for somebody to get FedRAMP compliant if they're not using Anishan?
Great question. This used to be the industry I was in, so I feel a little silly saying this. So before Anishan, I worked for a FedRAMP auditor. I spent 5 years there. And there's usually two lines of business there. There's the advisory side, where you help these commercial clouds rebuild their environment for the military or for a commercial agency, and based off of my experience and industry trends, anywhere from, if it was quick, 6 months to usually about 2 years. The average is really 12 to 18, which can be quite a lot of time when you're trying to get to market by a big revenue. For a nation, we do it in 60 days.
That's amazing. I mean, that's an amazing amount of time to shave off.
Yes.
So in this case, with this customer, what's the progression then? Where are you at?
We're audit ready, so our nation's claim, the way that our claim to fame, we like to say that we can get you to audit ready at 50% the cost and 80% faster. The secret to our success is infrastructure as code, so let's use technology. A lot of these cloud environments, I like to think of them as puzzles. A lot of those puzzle pieces really start to look the same for what's required. An example here is you need to have endpoint protection, you need to have a SIM, so a place to put all of your audit logs. What that solution is, that can vary. There's a lot of vendors. We all see them in the vendor space. A lot of vendors for each one of those, and that's okay, those can vary, but those puzzle pieces are the same. So when you have something that you have a pattern, you can automate that. So that's what we did with infrastructure as code, to automate these environments that can just, I like to call it spring up out of the box, have this brand new house that these applications, our customers can just move right in.
Thank you. So what's been the end result? Well, let me ask you this. What did AWS bring to the table for this?
So as Jules has been talking about, we've been working with Jules, who has been a phenomenal resource for us. We have been taking advantage, I believe it's provisional. I think we just got into the MAP program, so the Migration Acceleration Program that Jules works in. And by getting into this program, we were able to take advantage of the funding that AWS provides to their partners. So AWS will cover the labor that we supply, which of course then translates into a discount for our customers, which has been wonderful. As I mentioned earlier, 50% reduction in cost. Perhaps we can drive that down lower by being in programs like this.
Thank you. So what's the end result for the customer here?
They get to the cloud fast, and they get to the cloud cheaply. Or so it's planned.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Why don't you stay up here? We're going to wrap up here, and then we'll open for questions and answers. And thank you so much, Emily.
Of course.
All right. So what did we really learn from everything we talked about today? You need to find the partner who can help you address the time, the cost, and the knowledge that you need to get things into the cloud. You want somebody who's got the competencies. AWS has competencies for specific markets, but competencies for education, for healthcare, for government. And of course, the mother lode of all competencies is the migration competency, which tells you not only does your partner have the knowledge to do the migration for you, but they have the experience. You're not getting somebody who's just doing it for the first time. You're getting somebody who's actually proved that they can do it and can show examples that they have done it. So that's definitely something that you want to look at, including they get access to those funding programs like MAP that we just talked about. You absolutely want to choose somebody that provides the most value to what you're trying to accomplish. Think about the mainframes. You can lift and shift a mainframe into the cloud. It's a little weird, but you can do it. You can also modernize to make sure that you're forward-looking and that you're going to be able to implement things faster, take advantage of new technologies, be able to actually hire somebody with skill sets that you need to keep that programming going. So you want to make sure that you're looking at what value do you need to get out of this, and then you want to use the programs that help you remove the obstacles. Ask your partner what programs AWS offers. There's several. There's data-led migration, and there's for data-led migrations. There's MAP for large migrations. There are programs that help fund your proof of concept and your testing and development on your proof of concept. All of those programs are available to you, in addition to E-rate and funding and grant programs that are available from federal government, from state and local governments. Talk to your partner about that. They're knowledgeable. They know those things. And that's what you want to address when you're looking for, how do I get to the cloud faster? Find the right people to help you. And the right people to help you are AWS partners. Address the funding, look for the right value. Let's open it up. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. Let's open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions for us today?
If you have a question, please speak to the mic so we can get on the recording?
Hi, Jules. Thanks for your time. I had no idea what this talk was going to be about. But ironically, I was compressed. And so thank you. If anyone has any questions at all about what we did or the success we had, come down or booth downstairs. Also, AWS is announcing today, I believe, some sort of special plan where if you have 500 terabyte of data or more, Comprise will come in and evaluate it for free, and then you get a 25% off your initial AWS spend as well. So my name is Rob Gordon. We'd love to see you guys downstairs at the booth. Also, I have some business cards. I'll stay around here for a little bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there, I got a question for Emily. The example you used was how to ATO service if you want to go to market to federal customers. If you support federal customers and they're looking to ATO their environments, early into the cloud migration journey, that's something that Anisha helps out with as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of individual partners we work with who are part of the larger FSI. Excuse me, part of the larger FSI. So if there's a complete package and you're one piece of that, absolutely help with that.
Do you guys have a booth?
Do we have a booth? Looking at my alliances.
We do not here. We call it reInvent. If you want to hang around, we'll make sure that you get contact information. My name is Julia, so Emily and I will grab you after the session.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks, everyone.
Do you have any other questions? Is everybody shy today? All right, well, we want to thank you so much for coming to this session today. Please take the survey. Let us know if this information was valuable to you, and we'll make sure that we bring more information that's valuable to you. Thank you so much.